Hey y'all, what is up? Keasbey here, and today we're going into part 3 of Learn a Deck with Me, Purrely Edition. So to recap, part 1 we looked at the whole archetype as it currently exists in the TCG. We are getting new support fairly soon, and we'll cover that once it comes out. We're just covering the deck, how you could play it right now. Part 2, we found a couple of lines of play that I felt were really important. We showed the ideal versions of them, and then did a couple of test hands to show them in action in a slightly more real setting. Now for part 3, we're taking everything we learned in part 1 and 2 and taking it into some real game situations. So air quotes around real, we're going to be playing against the Edo Pro AI. So when I'm learning or testing a new deck, before I ever take it out into the real world, I either test it against the Edo Pro AI or against friends and specifically ask them to play down a little bit. Test hands are great. They help you practice combos with less than perfect scenarios, but you have to make up interruption points or opposing boards if you want to see how the deck actually does dealing with interaction. Playing the deck out in the wild is great too, until you come against someone who can just completely stonewall you and you don't actually get any chance to practice. Testing with either an AI on Edo Pro or a friend playing down is a really good way to see how the deck fares against interaction and established boards, but also gives you enough flexibility to actually play out hands consistently. Plus, it gives you the freedom to do these tests rapidly or just restart immediately if you don't get a playable hand, which can be useful knowledge for deck building, but not for learning how to play the actual deck. So based on these tests, you can refine the deck a bit more, and with the new knowledge you now have, then finally, take it out into the wild and see how you do. So a few housekeeping things up front. The Edo Pro AI is not all that clever, so we're going to try not to play in a way where we're purposely goading the AI into doing something an actual player would never do. This obviously isn't an issue when you're playing with a real person, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to try to avoid that as much as I can. Next, and I want to make this a caveat to everything that I ever do that involves testing with Edo Pro, it is a very well built program and is correct the majority of the time, but do not cite it worked on Edo Pro as a reason for a ruling. Even if it is correct, Edo Pro is not an official source of ruling. So if you ever do want to test, does this work? Absolutely try it on Edo Pro, but then confirm with the judge afterwards. I'm saying this now because I want to mention a nice advantage to testing on Edo Pro specifically is that it gives you interaction prompts for effects that you may not have realized work the way they do. Again, I'll always go back to the example of Edo Pro is the only reason I realized that you could use Ghost Bell on a water enchantress. In my defense, I've never seen someone grab a Rite of Aramasir from the graveyard, so I kind of forgot that she could do that. The other thing I want to mention is some of the decks that we're going to be testing against might be outdated so far as the ban list goes. So if we see anything in this video that's not totally up to date like that, don't worry about it. The point of this stage of testing isn't so much to see how the deck does against what's strong and current. It's more for you to get a feel of how it flows in a more real scenario than a test hand could ever provide. And you don't necessarily need to be playing against the most up-to-date decks for that to work, although it would be ideal if you could. Now with all that out of the way, don't forget to drop this video a like, subscribe to the channel for even more, and now let's prevent the AI takeover of humanity with a children's card game and a deck full of fucking cute cats. Okay, so for our first game against the Edo Pro AI, we are taking on Kaiba himself with Blue Eyes. So we're going to normal summon Purrely, and that is a very good flip. So we're going to fire off the My Friend Purrely here because we're just going to try to set up a Noir in the best possible way, and that involves getting Delicious Memory. So we're going to pay the 500 and search. We'll activate Purrely, overlay into Purrely Plump, and now we are just going to get to go to town. So again, the really nice thing about Purrely Plump is that we can just discard these additional quick plays that we have in our hand all willy-nilly because we can just reattach them with Plump. Absolutely nothing is lost. Again, we can get to X Purrely Noir if we made a Purrely Happiness or an Purrely Beauty, but we don't get that additional safety net of being able to freely discard these. I think with this hand, honestly, we would have been fine anyway, but because we're going through Purrely Plump, it's going to let us really overextend depending on what these Purrelys flip up. Or Purrely. Someone in the comments mentioned I keep calling them Purrelys, and they were right. Purrely is the better name for them. So we're going to fire this off, and we're going to grab another My Friend Purrely just to set up for future plays. We don't really need the Purrely at the moment because we very safely can make Noir at this point, and Noir is going to obviously have its protection. But we're just going to get the Purrely anyway, so alright, here we go. Let's go ahead and attach. And there's Purrely Noir, and we're just going to make an on-some Blue Robin here with our additional Purrelys. Again, the order you want to do this in is make the Purrely Noir first, that will be our 5th summon, and then if our opponent Nibiru's us, all we're really losing is either on-some Blue Robin or the 2 Purrelys that would have made it up. Either way, not a big deal. However, if we make on-some Blue Robin first, say if we had an extra Delicious Memory and we wanted to give this the battle protection, you do run the risk of getting Nibiru'd on the on-some Blue Robin summon, and then we will not get to go into Purrely Noir. And now currently we do have 7 materials, so if we need to emergency bounce something, we can, and we will still have the protection. And at this point, it really doesn't matter what our opponent does. The Edo Pro AI loves to draw a ton of cards, so we're just going to watch them mill through most of their deck. Galaxy Cyclone will hit the Infinite Impermanence. Again, not a big deal. So because on-some Blue Robin's attack is so low, you do kind of have to just shotgun the effect twice. It's really hard to wait for an opportune time to do it, because if our opponent normal summons once, they can just attack over it. Granted, it will eat their battle phase, but a lot of times I just end up shotgunning this just as generic interruption, and then Purrely Noir acts as big interruption if we need it to be, but I don't think in this case we're going to have to do anything. So we'll just go ahead and bounce that back again. And our opponent will go ahead and end there. So we're going to do something a little bit cheeky here, partly because I know the Edo Pro AI pretty well, and I know that they're not on Effect Veiler or Infinite Impermanence, partly because with this board state, I can kind of afford to because it's a completely empty board. We're actually going to use Purrely to go back into a Plump, and now with the Plump, we're going to add even more materials on, and also Purrely is going to let us put our 2 Purrelys back in the deck as well. And now we're going to go ahead and fire off the Purrely Plump again, grab some more materials, activate My Friend Purrely. We're just really overextending at this point. By the way, don't forget the on-attachment effect of Plump. We can banish 1 monster on the field until the end phase of the turn. We're not even going to bother summoning additional Purrelys at this point. So, okay, my math was a little bit off here. I'm actually going to be shy 500 life points. And again, this is why it's nice to test against the Edo Pro AI, because kind of a cheap lesson we've just learned. Do math properly. However, we do have a now 8 activation double Azea, so good luck, opponent. We're just going to keep firing off Zeus over and over and over again, purely because we can. And at that point, our opponent's out of options, and we are going to go to the battle phase, attack him directly. So yeah, that was nice because it really let us go through all the lines of play pretty freely, and we did have some interaction, which is always cool for testing. Let's look at game 2. Alright, so we're taking on Kaiba one more time. This time we are going second. Our hand is pretty solid depending on the end board our opponent puts up. We do have an Infinite Impermanence to deal with any potential interruption that they might go into, and it looks like they are going to set up a Hope Harbinger, which is kind of problematic. Again, I mentioned it up top. We're going to see stuff like Soul Charge that is banned. These decks are a little bit outdated, but the point of this video and the point of these testings isn't so much to show how the deck performs against what's modern, what's current. It's just to get a hang of kind of going through the lines of play while still having to deal with a little bit of interruption that you may not have always considered when doing your test hands. Okay, so not the strongest end board. Again, it's the Edo Pro AI. We're not doing this to show off how strong the deck is. We're doing this to learn. Alright, so we are actually going to go ahead and grab that Delicious Memory because we are setting up for the OTK right now. We grabbed the Delicious Memory here instead of a Purrely to ensure that we had it because we have so much quick play action going on in our hand that even through an Ash Blossom, we could have still done this by just summoning or firing off 2 quick plays, sorry, and that would have gotten us into a Purrely. So we're going to activate Purrely. Ooh, we got another Delicious Memory, so we can really high roll this. We're not even going to bother really with overextending that much. We are going to summon another Purrely here just because. We're going to whiff off it, unfortunately, though. Ooh, we're going to make the Plump here. Okay, I mean, we might as well. We've got all the setup we need already. I mean, making the plump at this point was just kind of for fun. And again, too, we're practicing different things that we could do with the deck in a much more forgiving scenario. So, you know, if there ever was a case where we would have wanted to do that, it's good that now we know we can do stuff like that as well. All right, so we've beaten our boy Kaiba, my least favorite character on the show. If you've ever watched the Forbidden Memories playthrough, let's take on Yugi Moto himself. Okay, so we are going second against the Spirit of Yugi Moto via the Edo Pro AI. So we're going to fire off Ash Blossom on this Apprentice Illusion Magician because we want to make sure they don't have access to Dark Magician so that they can't banish our Purrely away with Dark Magical Circle. There is still a chance that they already have it in hand or they have other access to it, but let's just hedge our bets as best as we can. So we are going to go ahead and normal summon Purrely. We're actually not going to bother with the Diviner because we have everything we need in hand already for the Purrely Happiness OTK, but unfortunately we are going to lose Purrely to a Solemn Strike. Fortunately for us, we can use the Delicious Memory, so that actually is going to set up part 1 of the OTK for us. We're going to fire off Purrely, and fortunately we're going to pull Happy Memory off the top, so we do still have the OTK set up. We're going to grab a new copy of Volcanic Shell. So with my friend Purrely, it doesn't show it in the replay, but we are going to reveal Delicious Memory, and 1 copy of Pretty Memory because we have to reveal something else. Unfortunately, our 3rd Delicious Memory has already been used, and we're going to end up getting the Pretty Memory. So we're going to have to improvise a little bit. We are going to go into Happiness right now. We are going to activate Pretty Memory, attach it to the Happiness, and then use Happiness's on attachment effect to non-targeting bounce this last card back to hand just so that we don't have to deal with it. And because we have Volcanic Shell, we may as well keep going to Purrely's. Okay, perfect. There's the Delicious Memory. That's what we needed to see. If we didn't find the Delicious Memory, we don't have the OTK, but we could have still done some other plays that would have really gotten us through. But now we are all set to go to OTK our opponent. And we'll just attach that Dark Magical Circle too, because why not? And remember, we made this unable to be destroyed by battle, so we can just continuously ram into it with Purrely Happiness. And we are just going to grab some extra cards because we don't need anything else at this point. And yeah, that was round 1 against Yugi Moto. Let's see how we do round 2 against the King of Games himself. Alright, so loading up into round 2 versus the King of Games himself. As you can see, Yugi Moto has decided to diversify his deck a little bit and is running with a Wind Witch engine, which leads me to believe we are going to be contending with a Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon at the end of this combo. A little bit problematic because that is going to hard stop our first Purrely unless we rip Infinite Impermanence off the top, but I think we can play through. So our opponent has Eternal Soul set, but they have no Dark Magician access, so the back row is kind of irrelevant. We just have to get through this one Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. They do also have Apprentice Illusion Magician in hand, which is going to potentially act as a battle trick depending on how things go. However, we are unaware of that. I do want to point that out. So we're setting up for the OTK right now. We've already made Magician's Rod unable to be destroyed by battle. We have the Happy Memory, we have the Purrely, and we actually have an extra Delicious Memory as well. So we should be all set to go. We're going to bounce that back to our opponent's hand with the on attachment effect of Purrely Happiness. Why even bother worrying about it? And we are going to actually grab the Pretty Memory because just in case everything doesn't work out, I do want to just clear that Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. So unfortunately, because this happens in the damage step, we would not have been able to have even called by the grave that had we saved the call by the grave, so is what it is. Fortunately for us though, the second Purrely Delicious Memory that we used, we actually made the Purrely Happiness unable to be destroyed by battle because we were setting up for the potential that we would have to ram into the Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon once if our opponent used a second copy of Magician's Navigation to potentially get this off the field, or I'm sorry, not Magician's Navigation, the one that tributes a spellcaster to get Dark Magicians in hand. I'm not super familiar with Dark Magician, sorry. But anyway, basically, we did a little bit of extra setup and it ended up working out for us. So now we are going to proceed to get to do the OTK. So, you know, you've seen me do it before, you'll see it again. And it is nice too showing it in these videos because it does show how many different routes we have to end up with this ultimate board where we have this Purrely Happiness, our opponent has something that can't be destroyed by battle, and we can just get to go to town on it. Fortunately, we did have the Purrely Beauty on field to do that extra little bit of damage that we lost out on because of the Apprentice Illusion Magician. Okay, we've beaten the protagonists Kaiba and Yugi, let's take on a non-anime character. We're going up against the AI playing Sword Soul. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so round 1 versus Sword Soul, our hand is not great. We can potentially Nibiru them depending on the route of play that they take, and it's looking like we are probably going to get to. Yep, so they're going to add the long one, and on the summon of the token, we are going to go ahead and hit them with a Nibiru. Unfortunately, they're going to extend a little bit out, and also unfortunately, because we Nibiru'd them, we've now given them a non-effect monster, so they can start going to 10U plays, and they are going to end here with an infinite impermanence in the back row. That honestly might be enough to do it. This hand is not particularly strong. We are going to use Nash Blossom with the My Friend Purrely. We're going to go ahead and make this unable to be destroyed by battle, setting up for the OTK, but unfortunately, this Purrely is going to eat that infinite impermanence. We're going to normal summon Volcanic Shell. We're going to make Sylvan Prince Bet, just to hope for the best. Oop, there's the Delicious Memory. We're going to fire it off, make her unable to be destroyed by battle, and with Purrely, we are going to go for it. And we're actually going to get the Happy Memory. It turns out we are going to be able to get the OTK. So again, this is just something that, like, you can't really get with test hands, this level of interaction and randomness. Again, you know, we're playing into an opponent that's playing down. I do want to point out we accidentally played into the imperm column with the Delicious Memory. Doesn't really matter in this case. We just need to be able to attach it, and then the infinite impermanence negation on the column doesn't matter once it's a material. But, you know, just bad habit to be in playing into the imperm column. Always keep track of that. But yeah, from here, we are actually going to get to do it through that board. Pretty cool. And we'll just go ahead, get that last attack that we need, and we'll just make Nibiru unable to be destroyed by effects. So yeah, that was round 1. So we actually did manage to play through 2 different interruptions on that one and still set up the OTK. Pretty good. Let's look at round 2. Okay, going into round 2 versus Sword Soul, we actually are very, very well set up to pull off the OTK with this hand. We're going to fire off Ash Blossom on that Vessel for the Dragon cycle, hoping to keep them off any Sword Soul stuff, but is what it is. So I do want to point out, and again, this is a result of the AI, I feel like a skilled player using Sword Soul probably could have extended past this point. I'm just going to peek at their extra deck really quick and see if they have... Oh, they actually don't have the Shaman of the Tenyi, but... you know, it's the Edo Pro AI. Again, I really, really want to point out that the point of this video and the point of testing against the AI isn't necessarily to show, oh, Purrely is the best deck. Purrely is really good. It can consistently beat Sword Soul. It's really just to show, okay, we have a little bit of a board state to deal with now. How can we address this using Purrely? Let's get some practice in. And then, you know, we'll ramp it up when we play against real players who really know what they're doing much better than the AI. But for now, this is just a really, really good start point for learning a deck. Again, I just really want to be super transparent about that and, you know, really hammer home that that is the point of this video more than anything else. So we more or less have the full OTK setup, but again, we are going to have to contend with Blackout, but because of Purrely Happiness, we can completely do that. So we're going to go into Purrely Happiness, and we're going to go ahead and fire off Purrely Delicious Memory. So the way the chain is going to resolve, something to keep in mind, by the way, about Blackout, it does have to have 2 targets, so currently we only have 1 on the field. So the on attachment effect chain 2, we are going to non-target bounce this Sword Soul Blackout back to the hand before it could ever activate, because we will never have 2 targets while this is on the field. And then after that resolves, we're going to go ahead and discard one of those Purrleaps to go into a Purrely. And from here, we really pretty much have it. Yeah, that Purrely whiffed, unfortunately, but we're still going to get to do the basic combo. So again, we still have 1 more attack. We're going to use that extra attack to get a chance to boost Purrely Happiness up, and we might as well flip 3 with Purrely. Oh, we're going to grab a Pretty Memory. That'll be good follow-up if our opponent happens to survive, but they are not going to. And then, as always, we are going to use that last search to go ahead and attach 1 additional attack and hit into the Very Tiny Monk of the Tenyi 1 more time, and that is going to be game. Okay, so that was taking Purrely out for a spin against the Edo Pro AI. Again, and I think it's really important that I do say this again and again throughout this video, the point of this video wasn't so much to show, wow, look how powerful Purrely is. It can beat all these decks, it is very consistent, it plays through interruptions. It does have the potential to do all these things, but more the point of this video was, hey, we're still in the early stages of learning how to play this deck. Let's take it out for a spin against an opponent that isn't necessarily going to stonewall us anytime we make a tiny mistake, and let us kind of go through all the different lines of play while still having a little bit of forgiveness if we mess up. Ultimately, we never want to be messing up, but you know, sometimes it just happens that way, and having that chance to recover lets us potentially even learn and discover more different lines of play that we might not have found if we just immediately lost. So again, you can do this with a friend, just ask them to play down a little bit. I like doing it with the Edo Pro AI once again because it gives you all those different command prompts if you've got an effect that you may not have known you could have activated there. But again, my caveat, Edo Pro, not a source of official ruling, so if you're ever not sure about something, just ask a judge. Anyway, so I'm going to take what we learned in this video, further refine the deck, and hopefully show it off for you guys soon. I do know Cyberstorm Access is coming out soon, and we're going to be getting even more Purrely support then, so if you guys have been keeping up, you already know how to play the deck pretty well, and you are ready to make this deck even stronger when we get little Purrely Noir, and Purrely Sleepy Memory. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop it a like and subscribe to the channel for even more, and I will catch you all later.